Nancy's not coming.
That's the only person I'm aware that has told us they're not going to be here.
Okay, so we're waiting on Tasha then for a minute.
And Mel.
And is Melanie there?
Here.
I'm here.
And
I'm wearing green.
And she's got
Right.
green and everything.
To honor Nancy, I just read through the minutes meticulously.
Here we go.
Don't you always? Come on.
I do, but not usually fast, you know,
You touched
Yeah.
it last. That's your
But,
job
like,
now.
with pen, went through. I was very proud of myself.
Okay.
I wanted to tell her, but so.
And I think we've got some guests that will be joining us as well.
Okay. Well,
And they
before we
may already be
begin,
here.
this is the group I need to make sure I apologize for the mess that I had last meeting.
Uh,
Oh, that was okay. No, it was fine.
Yeah, well, as somebody that's complained about people that use Zoom and create messes, I used Zoom and created a mess, so.
We got through it.
We'll remind everybody though, when you are speaking, like, be careful not to rummage with papers on your desk. 'Cause that happened a few times last month and I ended up muting you or even if you weren't speaking and you were doing stuff and forgot to turn off your microphone. So just, yeah, if you're speaking, try not to move your hands at the same time because that picks up on the microphone. Some microphones are more sensitive than others. And I have a few people in the attendees that I need to make sure that I don't need to elevate to presenters. I've got Todd, let me know if any of these need to be elevated.
Yeah, we'd like to elevate Mike Morgan. He's part of the Bissinger Place
Thank you.
project.
And I have Catherine Kress and David, and I'm sure David's here just to listen in and report. And I'm assuming then Catherine is a citizen that's listening in, or is she a presenter?
I believe she's just listening in.
Thank you. We are live, and the webinar is running, and we are live on YouTube whenever Carl is ready.
Well, let's begin. We've got a quorum, so it's March 17th. It's a couple minutes after noon. This is the regular monthly meeting of the Board of the Missoula Redevelopment Agency. We have 4 board members present. Tasha has just joined. Nancy Moe is absent. We'll call the meeting to order and remind people that we're recording, so behave accordingly. And go to the February 17th, 2022 minutes. Melanie, did you?
I would like to move to approve the minutes. They look great.
Is there a second?
It's Ruth. I'll second the motion.
All right. All in favor, anybody else? Any comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Public comments and announcements on matters that aren't on the action item agenda. Anybody?
Yeah, Carl, if I could, I would like to introduce Annie Gorski to the group. We didn't do introductions. She's the new MRA Deputy Director and joined us. Well, she joined the meeting, I guess, last week for a bit of it, and I don't remember, or last month. And I don't. No, I think this is her first. So anyway, Annie is here from Salem, Oregon, and has been on board since the 2nd, I think, of March. So just welcome Annie aboard.
Welcome, Annie.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you all. Thank you. I was most recently in the city of Salem, managing our economic development, federal housing and finance divisions. So that included activities in 6 of our TIF districts there. So learning learning and listening, and look forward to working with you all.
You've moved to Missoula?
Yes, I'm in Missoula and move into a rental on April 1st. So
Glad you could find a rental.
me too.
I have to ask you, what's your biggest surprise so far?
I would say my biggest surprise so far is the weather. Just the, it was spring.
Yes.
It was spring in the Willamette Valley when I moved here. So I've gotten to try skate skiing. Yes, enjoying a bit of winter and some spring. That, and then I think just learning the differences between urban renewal law in Montana versus Oregon. Working with Todd on my first amendment and learning how that's a little bit different. But yeah, it's been fun so far.
Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yes, we are. Glad you're here. So anything else? Any other comments or announcements? If not, let's move to the action items. Todd, how do I pronounce this?
It's pronounced Bissinger Place.
Bissinger Place. Todd, take it away.
All right, let me see if I can do a little screen share. How's that? Are we looking at the red outline on the property here?
No.
No. Shoot, what's going on? Let me pick a different screen here. Maybe I want
We
this
have the
one.
memo, Todd, so if you want to just refer us to it.
Oh, here we go. I'm sorry. I didn't click the right button. Okay, what are we looking at now?
We're looking at a warehouse. Now we're looking at an air photo.
Okay, it's the air photo with the red outline.
Correct.
So we got an application for tax increment financing and facade improvement assistance from Bricks and Spurs LLC. This is for the Bissinger Place project located at 903 to 921 South First Street. And that's the area outlined in red here. So at 903 South First Street is the location of the historic Bissinger warehouse. This is a 6,000 square foot brick railroad warehouse that was constructed back in the early 1900s and used by the Bissinger Fur Trading Company. And this project will preserve the warehouse and repurpose the warehouse for more contemporary uses. And then later on in the 1960s, a 4,700 square foot addition was added to the south side of the brick warehouse. And then later on, a lean-to was constructed off the west side of the warehouse. So then further to the west at 915 and 921 South First Street, there are 2 houses and 2 detached garages. And these houses are in relatively advanced states of disrepair and are basically uninhabitable at this point. And so the houses and the garages and the lean-to and the east and west wall of the warehouse addition will be deconstructed and removed from the site. And then the east and west walls of the warehouse will be reconstructed in a manner that will allow the structure to support additional load on top by constructing additional floors over the existing structure. Here's a look at the brick warehouse as it is today. And the Bissinger Place project will be a 61,500 square foot development, 4 stories with mixed use, commercial and residential uses in this southeast area of URD2. And the developer anticipates commercial uses consisting of professional office space and some manufacturing, retail space, and possibly some food service spaces. And the residential component will include 42 dwelling units, and the amenities will include a rooftop terrace and grilling and lounging areas, secure bicycle storage, secure ski storage, and a ski tuning shop. And the dwelling units will vary in size and features to provide a range of rental rates. And the development will also install an elevator, so all floors of the new development will be accessible. The project's located adjacent to the Bitterroot Trail here to the east, and also adjacent to the new 1st and 2nd Street sidewalks that are either have been constructed or are slated to be constructed this year under the URD2 sidewalk program, really making downtown and other areas of town easily accessible by foot, bike, or other non-motorized means. And one of the benefits that keying in on this project, the public benefit, is that we've obtained a trail easement from Brooks and Spurs that we began talking with Mike and Frank last year as part of the Inez 1st and 2nd sidewalk project, and that project will this spring construct the 2nd Street cul-de-sac, and with the trail easement that was granted to the city by the developer, we'll complete the trail access connection this summer. So the TIF request involves 4 items: asbestos remediation, deconstruction, overhead utility relocation, and improvements in the 1st Street right-of-way. And I'll talk briefly about those aspects. First, the asbestos remediation, the exterior. Let me back up here. The exterior of the 2 houses, they're clad in an asbestos containing material, and the asbestos remediation will need to take place in order for those structures to be deconstructed and removed from the site. And deconstruction, to the extent feasible, materials will be salvaged from the houses, garages, and warehouse addition and recycled, and other materials from the site that are not worthy of recycling, the developers are hoping to give away and just try to minimize the materials that will be taken to the landfill. The overhead utility relocation aspect, on the south side of 1st Street, there are overhead power lines running through the boulevard here, and these lines will be relocated underground, which will allow the new construction to be located closer to the street front and actually give more buildable space and improve the articulation of the building as it faces Front Street. And then the right-of-way, 1st Street right-of-way improvements will involve the construction of diagonal on-street parking. So the boulevard here will be converted to diagonal on-street parking like we see on the north side of 1st Street here. This parking on the north side of 1st Street was constructed as part of the Third 2 Western Phase 4 sidewalk project back in about 2015. And we built this on-street parking in this area here, which is really a welcome feature of that sidewalk project by the neighborhood. So this kind of mirroring that parking on the other side of the street here will allow for additional on-street parking, which really not only will provide parking for the Bissinger Place project, but also provide additional parking after hours and on weekends for activities at the Loyola Athletic Field and possibly other activities down on the riverfront parks. And the total TIF request is for $269,000, which reminds me, I wanted to start out by saying there's a typo in my memo. If you haven't caught it, I looked at it a couple dozen times before it came about. In the staff recommendation later on, I transposed the 6 and 9 in the TIF request. So the TIF request is for $269,000. And I'll make sure I read that the proper way when I get to the recommendation. The second part of the application is the facade improvement program request. And let me jump to the warehouse here. Several features of the historic warehouse structure are eligible for assistance under the facade improvement program. And one thing, in order to kind of preserve and repurpose the warehouse, the developer will remove the existing exterior paint using non-abrasive paint removal techniques. That'll actually help resolve a moisture retention issue with the brick structure. I believe that would help extend the life of that structure. I guess I'll let Mike or Frank talk about that later on. And then the developer will also replace the existing windows, doors, and overhead doors with more modern, higher efficiency windows, doors, and also add awnings to the structure. So in all, $133,000 in eligible facade improvements have been identified, and we've advised the developer that the facade improvement program is capped at $50,000. So I've provided a itemization in my staff memo for the eligible items under the facade program, and that will then be capped at $50,000. And there are some slides, but for the MRA assistance in the facade program, the developer has indicated they would forego the exterior paint removal and also forego the replacement of the windows in the warehouse. So with the facade improvement assistance, we have the paint removed and kind of the exterior of the brick structure restored, and more efficient windows, modern windows, doors, and awnings installed on the brick structure. So the project, I've gone through the typical kind of analysis of a TIF request and reviewing the application, and that all that information is in my memo I submitted. I'd like to highlight some of those aspects. First, the project really kind of furthers the goals identified in the City of Missoula strategic plan, particularly with community design and livability by developing the additional housing units for the Missoula housing inventory. We're creating more housing. The project connects the parcel to the Bitterroot Trail, and also the creation of a diagonal parking on First Street, helping to relieve parking pressure in the surrounding neighborhood. Our environmental quality goals of the plan, the deconstruction of the unusable structures, and the efforts to minimize material generated for landfill. And the project also furthers economic health strategic goals through job creation and entrepreneurial activities where none currently exist. The warehouse is currently vacant, as well as the two houses to the west. And the project considerably grows the tax base in URD2. For public purpose, I'm really keen in on two aspects, and that being the trail easement that we acquired to connect the 2nd Street cul-de-sac to the Bitterroot Trail, and the public parking that we will be creating on the south side of First Street. If we look at some of the metrics that we kind of measure applications to, the investment ratio and the leverage ratio for the project is really good. Public investment to private investment ratio is 1:53 if we look at the overall investment in the project, or if we even consider just the construction cost, $1 public dollar for every 40 public dollars. Both very favorable ratios, and MRA generally considers a ratio of 1:10 to be a good use of tax increment investment, so we're well beyond that. For tax generation, I've run through calculated, trying to look at what the taxes that will be generated from the new construction would be, and maybe give us an idea of what the tax increment from the project would be. And I'm estimating about $130,000 a year based on the tax valuation for the new construction. So we're not necessarily looking at that 128,842 number as the total tax bill, but as I'm trying to get to what the tax increment may be. And given that amount of tax generation, we'd be looking at a payback on the MRA investment of 3 years. And generally a payback of less than 10 years is considered a good use of tax increment funds. I've talked about some of the impact assessment of the project with, I think, positive impacts with the trail connection and the additional parking created on First Street. The project will also preserve and reuse a historic warehouse and create a mixed use development in the southeast area of URD2. It's really the type of development I think MRA would like to encourage at this location, and Bissinger Place takes advantage of its location and proximity to the trail and public transportation and employment and shopping and entertainment opportunities that will enable the patrons and residents of Bissinger Place to really begin to navigate their everyday lives with less dependence on car use. The project is scheduled to be completed in the fall of 2023. And so if it's good with the board, I'll make the 2 recommendations and then turn it over to Mike and Frank to talk about maybe some more details and show some other slides of the project.
We've got the recommendations, Todd, with the correction. So maybe we hear from Mike, and now that'd be Mike.
Okay, let me stop sharing my screen if I can figure that out. There we go. Take it away, Mike. I should introduce Mike Morgan and Frank Scariano. I think, is that Frank with you, Mike?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, Frank Scariano of Scariano Construction, Mike Morgan of Hoffman and Morgan Associates. Both have been involved in projects in the downtown area in URD2 and in URD3. So Mike and Frank, take it away.
Guys, you got anything to add?
Yeah. Let's see here. You want a screen share?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Frank and Mike here, and we're going to set up here just for a second on getting our share screen set up. Okay.
What do you want?
That one. I know what you're doing.
Okay. Is that showing? Do we need it bigger?
Just click up on this. Yeah.
Where?
Click and drag it down, but.
That's square there.
Do I now?
Yeah.
Hit that. Redo it.
Okay. There we go. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so we thought we'd just tell our story a little bit and show you a few slides, and I think Todd did an excellent job of really summarizing everything for you, so we won't be repetitive too much, but yeah, I'll run you through a few things, and Frank will run through a few things, and we shouldn't take but a few minutes here. So this slide here is just again the survey of the existing property, and we've highlighted these different parts of the building, which here is the historic Bissinger warehouse on the northeast corner of the property, the perimeter of the property being this. And then in the 60s, the additional warehouse was added onto on the south side here, as well as a lean-to structure on the west side. And so, and then there's 2 homes like Todd had mentioned here on the west, and a couple of outbuildings on the south that are, yeah, in pretty advanced state of disrepair. And so our whole concept is centered around the character and charm of history to start off, which is the Bissinger warehouse. And then we're also but this isn't 1905 anymore. So we're trying to satisfy contemporary needs, which is commercial uses and residential rental units, and which is following what zoning allows in this area and what the growth policy suggests. And so there you go. There's the site, and just an overview of the site real quick for you. And then this is proposed what the site plan looks like, and with, as Todd described, the assistance of removing and burying the power lines along First Street and adding diagonal parking. Boy, it greatly improves the street front along First Street and allows us to bring our streetscape or our frontage of our building close to our front property line to allow for a nice, strong commercial frontage along with some nice architectural articulation. If we didn't do this, it requires the face of the building to slide back away from the property line, and it doesn't allow us the same opportunity for the same kind of architecture. And I'll show you a little bit more example of that in a second. And so, and then through the center of the building, we have this common vestibule gallery use kind of space, which is really nice. But that's what this brown area here is. And this is the south warehouse where, as Todd touched on, demoing some of the walls to be able to rebuild those walls with better structural capacity. They don't have any reinforcing in the concrete. They're not below frost level. They're just not able to serve the needs of the building. Did you want to touch on that, Frank, at all more?
Well, those walls don't go below, I think they go into the ground about 12 to 18 inches, and they have no footing. So they just won't allow for us to build on top of them at this point. So it's good for what it is, but not if we want to go up with it.
Yeah. And down here is the trail that Todd mentioned about the trail connection. We're excited about that. This is really emphasizing the project, the great location being right along the Bitterroot Branch Trail. It's right in the core of the city, less than 10 minutes walking at my pace at 57 years old. I can get downtown in less than 10 minutes. And so we've really emphasized alternative transportation. There's a bus stop on 3rd Street, half a block down the trail. It's just such a great place to be without having to rely on the car so much, although we are providing parking as well. And we have, like Todd mentioned, a lot of long-term bike storage in the building that's secure. We're encouraging e-bikes and bikes. We have the tune shop is not just for skis, but also for bicycles. So we'll have a great tune shop for the tenants as well. And then as Todd showed, this slide shows the project with the facade improvements, allowing the warehouse to be restored to its glory again. That's nice. And then the TIF funding allows the articulation and the architecture to be really nice along the front. And then this is just a quick example of without the removal of the power lines. It shows how the building front needs to slide back along First Street, and we lose that ability to create articulation. So it's a big help. This is just a slide that Todd showed with the paint still there and the windows that are there now. With the funding of facade improvements, that really helps, again, bring restoration back to the historic building. This was an exercise we ran through without both TIF funding for the street improvements and facade improvements. And it just to give you a graphical of, perhaps this is how it would be, where it's much bigger, blockier kind of a facade. And these are some other slides just to give you some other overall senses of the project. Here's Bissinger Warehouse again, and then the frontage along First Street. And here's the building improvements along the trail, and where the walls would come down on the south warehouse to allow for additional stories on top to be built. And this is just a trail view from the intersection of the Bitter Branch Trail and First Street. Just give you a sense of how that looks. And then lastly, here's a slide, more of a plaza view along First Street. And here's the warehouse with the brick brought back to original. And the gallery inside of the building, that common space entry, and it's very transparent, so you see the entirety of the depth of the warehouse. So this showcased, we feel really nicely. We're excited about that. And then we also brought historic elements into the new part of the building to just complement the fenestration of the warehouse, bringing brick into parts of the new addition part of the development. That's it for the slideshow. Did we miss anything? Deconstruction, alternative transportation. We have one thing that's good to touch on, I feel, is we have quite a range of different types of dwelling units in here. And depending on where they're located and the size of them, it offers a good broad range of different rental rates. This is all market rate rentals. We don't have a grant for quote unquote affordable subsidized housing, but we're really trying our best to allow for a equal opportunity for everybody, different rental rates, from more on the affordable ratio to a little more luxurious on the top levels. Anything else, Frank, today? Okay, so that's really it. Unless if you have any questions for us, happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? Mel.
Thank you so much. This project is so exciting to see something like that in this neighborhood. But I was just curious, the warehouse is historic, but it's not on the register. Is that why you're allowed to go up and around and all over it?
Correct, that's right. It is an historic contributing element, but it's not registered.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mel, you done? Other questions? Ellen, did you have one?
Excuse me, just a comment that there was a public comment from Bob Oakes that I think was forwarded to the board and staff pretty, just before the meeting, or not long before the meeting started. I don't know if we need to read that into the record or just acknowledge that we've seen it.
Well, we've seen it.
I'm happy to read it into the record if you'd like.
Well, we can make it a part of the record, but I think we've seen it. Did everybody see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other, Ruth?
Yeah, so following up on that, I have some other questions too, but what does market rate affordable mean? And is it tied to income, median income, or what? Help me understand that part of it.
Sure. The word affordable housing can be interpreted differently.
I know. So what does it mean to you?
It means, I'm not prepared to say what the rental rates exactly will be, because but what we are saying is, for example, we have rental units that are, we have some units that are at basement level, even in the basement with window wells that have light and windows and emergency exiting, all the way to penthouse type levels that are much larger and much more glass and views and outside decks. And so that naturally means the rents will be different between those kinds of units and everything in between. So from 1 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms, and some have lofts. So it just means that we can offer various ranges of rental options for people. And that's where our property manager comes in and helps us with, how we establish those rents and so forth. But
Actually appreciate that there is a range of options in this development, that, you know, that they're mixed in that way. And I know that there's housing needed at all levels in Missoula, affordable as, and all the way in all categories. I had a question about the landscaping, because I see that your plans called, one of the shots showed trees in front of the diagonal parking. And then I'm glad you had a shot that showed some landscaping along the trail. So I assume that there will be additional landscaping on that trail.
Yes.
And the chain.
I don't know. That property is owned by Montana or Washington Corp and Montana Rail Link. So we may or may not be able to do that. We've done quite a bit of work for Washington Corp over the years, and I have some good contacts there, and I've talked to them about this project already in terms of trying to donate some historical artifacts or something like that. Our vision, and Mike's done a really good job of compiling the history of the Bissinger warehouse. And one thing we'd love to do is similar to the Kim Williams trails, have like a little rock kiosk with a brass plaque talking about the Bissinger place or Bissinger warehouse. I think that would be a neat feature, but we have to get approval from Washington Corp to do any of that work.
Yeah, correct. We're adding landscaping on our property where we have opportunity, and we, like Frank said, hope to along the trail where it's not on our property. When I said correct, yeah, we're adding trees in areas here. It doesn't show on this plan, but there's planters in here where trees will be growing. And there's very little landscape area, but where we have it, we're putting trees and shrubs and so forth.
Yeah. Would be nice to see some trees along that trail.
Sorry, the east side of that property is right on the property line. So literally the foundation is the property line.
Yeah.
Okay. Would be nice to see some trees along the trail there. Can I assume that the chain link fence is coming down?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Todd, I also wanted to say that I really appreciate that access from from Second Street to the trail easement that you have there. I think that's really great, taking down the chain link fence and providing access to that street with the cul-de-sac. I really like that. So I had a question for Todd regarding those overhead lines, because it's really just like there's a pole on either end of your property on First Street, and then there's overhead lines again to the west of that. And I can't remember, Todd, if those sidewalks have already been redone, if they're going to be redone.
The sidewalks on First Street on the south side have been completed. We did that in 2015.
Okay.
And so the overhead lines would go underground on the west property line of this development and be undergrounded.
Just for the length of this property.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
If they ever were brought underground, it would be in the boulevard. So that, I mean, it's possible to probably do that along the rest of the block, but this project will just relocate them underground at this location.
Which is kind of a shame, because there are a lot of overhead lines here. And of course, there's overhead lines on the other side of the railroad tracks too. So, even this helps. And certainly for the residents, it helps a lot to have those overhead lines down. So I appreciate that. But I wonder if we should be thinking about that when we're doing sidewalk projects in the future, just having to notice it.
I'm sure we can get Northwestern Energy to do the whole thing, but we can't afford to pay for the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure Northwestern Energy can do it. It's just a question of who pays for it. So,
Right. And then finally, because Nancy isn't here, I have to ask, will you have recycling available for your commercial and residential tenants?
Yeah, we do have a place for both refuse and recycling here. There's 2 containers worth right here.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Anybody? tell me about the mix of the apartments. I mean,
Carl,
how
there's-
many? Yes,
A couple of people have hands raised, Tasha and Ellen. I don't know if you can see that on your
yeah, I
screen.
can see it.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. But well, let me ask about the mix. How many how many 2 bedrooms, how many basement?
Yes, I have that. I don't have it in front of me. I can get it. But it'll take me just a second to go grab that for you. I can do that though.
Okay,
So I'll be right back.
Yeah. I keep thinking I got one.
fall of 23, Frank, is that what they said? Complete?
Not sure if he's there, if he ran off with Mike, but it is.
No, he's there.
Okay.
Did you find it, Mike?
Can't see.
Yeah, it's coming exactly here in a second, but I know that a majority of them are 1 bedroom. And there's at least, there's about 3 or 4 2 bedrooms, and some of those have lofts. There's a couple of 1 bedrooms with lofts. So, but they're not called a bedroom because they're lofts, but you could have 2 beds in there.
Or an office.
Or an office, yeah, true. And so where we have the lofts are on the ground level, because like the design excellence programs call for, the ceiling heights are real high. And part of that also is because the warehouse is dock height. It's got loading dock height above the ground, but the ground level units here are at ground level. So they're about 16 feet of height for those units. So we have these mezzanines in there, really exciting spaces in there. So, and then above the warehouse here, we have larger 2 bedroom penthouse type of units. And there can be a couple of 2 bedrooms right above this corner right here. If we haven't developed a design fully to know if those are going to be 2 or 1, but they can be. There's room for those to be 2 bedroom right there. So that means how do I tell you 2 bedrooms? There's for sure 2, and there could be, but then there's also 2 more with lofts. And then there's potentially 3 more that can be 2 bedroom.
So the vast majority of them are 1 bedroom, right?
Yes, that vast majority are 1 bedroom.
And then how many, roughly, if you don't have the real number, if you don't have the exact number, I don't really care, but you mentioned that some of them are sort of basement level. How many of those are there?
Or what? Basement, how many in the basement?
Oh, basement? There are in the basement units?
6 or 8.
4.
4 in the basement, I
There's
think, Carl.
4 units in the basement.
Okay,
They stack like you see here. They're right here.
okay. All right. Natasha has her hand up.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I'm so sorry. My video is not working. I don't know what's going on. I was on a Zoom call before this, but so I apologize that my video is not working. My question was the same, Carl. I wanted to know more details about the dwelling units. I understand there are 42, and you've described that they're mostly 1 bedroom, and the square footage size of these spaces in a general sense. Can you give us that information?
About 650 square feet.
Okay, and then how about the commercial uses in the space? I know you may not know with certainty what all of them may be, but can you give us a sense of what those spaces may be utilized for? And if there are plans that you can share, I'd be appreciative of knowing.
Well, one of the main goals of this, we outgrew our current shop space and office space about 2015, 2016. So started looking for more space or additional space or better space. And Mike and I do a fair amount of work together. I mentioned it to Mike, we both kept our eyes open, and then Mike found this space. So we're going to move my company over to the South Warehouse. We currently have about a 300 square foot office with 7 people working in there. And so we share workstations. We have a Google, schedule in terms of when, certain desktops are available, because certain programs we use are only available on a desktop format versus a laptop or a MacBook or something like that. So it's this convoluted scheduling program when people are coming and going. So we'll have our office over here, as well as our shop. Our current shop's about 1,000 square feet, and then we rent other shop space. So this will allow us to consolidate our shop on that whole South Warehouse. So it can't happen fast enough as far as we're concerned. So that's what's going to happen in the South Warehouse and the floor right above it. So quite a bit of the commercial space will be taken up by our company on the south side there.
And we plan to move our company also to the building. Which space we get to have, I'm not sure yet. Depends on what we have left. But we'll have our professional office there. Thank you, Emmett. And then we have, we can't say for sure because it'll be depending on who wants to lease the space for sure. But this is slated for retail, and that's the interest we're getting from people are retail type of uses in these commercial spaces here. Can you see where I'm pointing to, right?
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, other questions?
Well, just one more question.
Yeah.
All of the dwelling units will be lease space, or will any of this, the housing be available for purchase on a condo basis or something like that?
No, it's all lease space at this point.
Okay, all the residential dwellings will be rentals?
Yes.
And then I guess, Carl, if you're okay with it, I have more of a comment than another question, and that I think relates to the public comment we got from Mr. Oakes. So if you'll give me that.
Absolutely.
So there was the question asked is, can the board require that as a condition of contribution towards this project that there be something more firm in terms of low income housing or affordable housing? And I guess I would address that by saying we need housing in Missoula. We need more rental space in Missoula, and we need more affordable housing. And that is certainly one of our prime missions in this board and in this community. But private projects can't always be possible with stipulations that restrict or require or put caps on rental financing. So this is, and I think you touched on this a little bit. Was it Mike maybe, by saying you don't have grant funding that would allow there to be, some restrictions on lease rates. That this in order for this project to be feasible, there has to be market rates. And so I certainly am sensitive to that, and I think we all are, but I wanted to communicate that in response to that public comment, that not only is it outside what I believe to be our authority based on what stipulations we can put on our participation in a project such as this, but there's also just the practical reality that imposing those types of stipulations would oftentimes make a project not feasible to actually work. And so I appreciate the comment, and I want Mr. Oaks, you know, we are sensitive to that issue always, and it is our mission and our hope that we will always have the opportunity, but not all projects are appropriate for those types of low-income housing or more affordable types of restricted rent housing. That's it. I'll lower my hand now. Sorry, I'm not on video.
Okay, your hand is gone. I guess I'd also add to that I think doing it on an ad hoc basis would be not a good thing to do. I mean, if we want to go back now and look at a programmatic change that applies to everybody, that's one thing, but to take a project that's this far along and start applying brand new rules to it, this doesn't seem very fair to me. Anyway, additional questions from anyone? Comments? Mike, I wonder if, I'm glad you pulled up this picture. So as I understand it, in this picture, if we start at the red brick low building there on the bottom right corner, that's the old warehouse, right?
Here, yes.
Yes.
Yes,
So that's still, you're still looking at leasing that, correct?
yes,
Then if you go to the right, the newer, I'm sorry, to the left, I apologize, Mike, the other right there. This low part down here, that's where Frank, that's where you're gonna put your business?
Correct.
Okay. And Mike, I'll let you guys fight about whether or not who gets what. And then now if you go to the right where your hand is that's also potential retail space?
yes, sir.
Okay. And then above that is the apartments?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, pretty dramatic change. Anything from anybody else?
I do like this project, and I appreciate the private investment that's going into this project at 17 million, and with a very small tip investment, and the ratios are really phenomenal.
Okay, Mike, I wonder if I could get you to stop sharing your screen so when we vote, we can sort of see each other. All right. Is there a motion then? I suppose we need two. So does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right.
I'll move both recommendations, and if you'd like me to read them at this time, I will do that.
Well, I don't think we need to read them both. I wonder, the recommendation, of course, has an error in it. So the first one, the recommendation for the TIF funding would be 269,000. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So is that your motion, Tasha?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Ellen, can we do them to both together?
Yeah, I think we have in the past where we've had combination of TIF and facade.
All right. Is there a second?
This is Ruth. I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion in two parts to approve the staff recommendation with the correction. Any further discussion? Any public? Ruth?
Just one further comment, and that is that when this TIF investment is paid back in 3 years, that we will have quite a bit of extra funding for future projects, and I appreciate that too.
Okay. Now would be the time for any public comment also. And Joe will let me know if anybody wants to.
Yes, Bob Oakes is in our attendee list and he has his hand up, so I'm going to
All right.
allow Bob to give his public comment. Give me a second here.
Okay.
Bob, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Bob.
first of all, I gotta say this is a great looking project. And I think it really belongs where it's going. But I'd also, and I understand your reasoning about imposing additional conditions on it now, but I really want to encourage the commissioners to think about future projects and allowing for there to be a required inclusion of truly affordable housing in some components of it. Ellen can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that has been also suggested in the Broadway Gateway plan for potential MRA involvement there. And I don't know if I probably don't need to point this out. I know it's not for the first time, but let me say it. When people talk about market rate now, you're really talking about whatever the market will bear. And we have learned that what the market will bear does not make for affordability for our workforce. And it's a problem that we all need to think about how to resolve. And I know that MRA has the potential ability to contribute that way and in many other ways that it already does. But I think it's a policy that I really encourage you to consider in the future. And thanks for your time.
Thanks, Bob. Anything else from anybody? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Mike and Frank, thank you very much for a very interesting project. Look forward to seeing it. You're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, but you certainly don't have to.
Thank you guys for your support and comments, and yeah, we're excited to get going on it.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much. And Ellen and Todd, you huge help. Thanks so much for the process. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Next, 500 block of Burton Street improvements.
Yes, that's me again. I'll just share my screen if I can to bring up my little exhibit, but I don't see where the button is. Oh, wait, here. All right, we want to share this one. Here we go. Just okay. Can we see the Burton Street and the two areas outlined in red?
We can.
Okay. Well, this was back again with Burton Street. Back in January, the board unanimously supported an amendment to the Morrison Merrily professional services agreement, which we essentially brought these improvements out of the Alex Sobrayan development on Burton Street, and now we have created a MRA infrastructure project to get these improvements completed. Originally, they started way back, or not even way back, but back in with the West Broadway Island project, and they were removed from that project to keep that project within budget. And so during that meeting, the board then instructed staff to look at adding a street lighting component to the project. And I think at that time I said, yes, we would. And in doing so, if we add that lighting to the project, we'd be adding to the scope of Morrison Merrily's agreement, and that we would most likely be back asking for an additional amendment to add the design of the lighting and the contract administration of that item in the contract to their scope of work. And we have done that. And what we landed on is, if you can see my little hand here, we will add a street light on the east side of Burton at the alley here behind the motel. And then we'll add 2 trail lights down here towards the entrance to the West Broadway footbridge to the island. And the board further instructed staff to make an outreach to the residents in the area of 500 block of Burton, and notifying them of what we were that we were interested in adding lighting to the project, and if there were know any objections or comments or questions to that. And so staff sent out a letter, I believe it was on March 3rd, to the residents in the area, and I haven't heard anything back on that letter, so I'll take that as no news is good news. Although I did talk to a former resident in the, I think it might be called the Island Park condos here. They no longer live there, but I advised him or told him what we were doing with adding the lighting component, and he just thought that would be a very welcome addition to that area of Burton Street. So I think we're on the right track, bringing some lighting in there. And so the recommendation today then is that the board move to approve Amendment 2 to the July 2021 Morrison Merrily Professional Services Agreement in an amount not to exceed $6,700 for additional professional services to add street and trail lighting to the Burton Street Improvements Project.
Questions? Mel?
Thanks so much. I'm so excited to see this project as an example of us forward thinking what else needed to happen as a piece to this while we're working on something. I'm really excited about this. I'm just wondering, as I know just enough now about neighborhood engagement to be dangerous, sending a letter to the property owners versus the residents, the leasees of those structures. Do we know if the message has gotten across to the actual people living in the building versus the owners of the property?
I do not. So, yeah, I got the properties for the property owners of the individual condos. Can't particularly tell if that got relayed to the people that are actually there or not.
Okay. In this, maybe Ellen is the best to chime in on this from all the proper or all the community engagement work she's seen. Something like this, though, where it's a public safety solution. Do you feel confident that we are able to proceed knowing that this will be welcomed?
I guess one response I would have is that because this is a condominium, a building full of condominiums, they probably have a homeowners association, and I would imagine that an owner would be managing that. So I would think that once that owned, the HOA would distribute a letter like this to if you have any investment properties that are rentals there. I think that building's a mix. I know there's some folks that rent out their units during the winter and go to Arizona and then come back for the summer. But the majority of it seems to me, with the comments that we received when the POV was being done, a lot of the comments that we got were from owner occupants of the building. So,
yeah, the condominium association was on the list that did get a letter. So.
I mean, I don't know how you get around that other than trying to hang stuff on people's doors.
I mean, I think because this will improve public safety with lighting, it would be received, but some people do not like light outside their bedrooms. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to make sure we can say that we thoroughly check the box of making sure that we won't disrupt living on the street,
So all of these lights meet the dark skies criteria. Perfect. And the majority of complaints that I'm aware of, and I'm one of them, is when you've got a Cobra head that's the old style lighting shining in your bedroom window, which is what I have. These lights don't do that, and especially the trail lights are much less intense than the street lights are as well.
Okay, thanks so much. That makes me feel better.
Well, plus, Mel, I think if we've got a condo development and we're sending it to the HOA, that's as well as the individual owners. I think we've covered. We're pretty well covered.
Yeah, I think condo owners are actually listed on the tax roll, but it is like Ellen said, whether or not they are there or not, they may be part-time residents or not, but it's maybe a better chance of hitting a condo owner than a apartment renter who is not listed on the tax roll. So
Okay,
we do what we
anything else?
can.
Anything else? I don't see anything. Is there a motion?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Todd? Okay, Todd, you want to stop sharing your screen, please?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so the staff recommendation's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion or any public comments?
This
Jill?
is Jill. I don't have anybody with their hand raised.
Okay. All right. If not, no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The motion passes unanimously, and we get to turn to the 500 block of Burton Street again.
One more time. Yes, and this is a good one too. I'll just jump right into it. In mid-February, Morrison Merrily had big bid documents ready, so we bid the project the last week of February, first week of March. Last Friday, we opened bids for construction. We got 2 bids. The low bidder is Knife River Corporation in the amount of $178,000. And well, we're happy to get that bid. I think in this environment, it's below the engineer's estimate and something we can work with. And Morrison Merrily has reviewed the bid, found it to be responsive, correct, and complete, and is recommending that we award the construction contract to Knife River. And therefore, staff recommendations that the board move to award construction contract for the Year 2 Burton Street Improvements Project to Knife River Corporation in the amount of $178,000. Authorize the MRA board chairman to sign the contract and authorize staff to sign the contract documents to award the contract and proceed to construction.
Okay, any questions? We talked about this extensively last time, and
Yeah.
yes, Ruth.
But I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, because we had already approved a certain amount that part of that 100, was it 187 or 178? 178 has already been approved.
Exactly,
right?
I can speak
Or
to
it has
that.
already been accounted for, I should say.
Yeah, the Sabrayan Development Agreement that had the right-of-way improvements in it, that had the board had already approved $57,705. And so I wanted to write it. We need to award the contract for the full amount to Knife River,
right.
but it's mostly an internal then accounting where we'll reprogram that money into this project. And it's really a net effect of about $120,295. So
about
that. Yeah. So that's a good point. I meant to raise that, but.
Okay, anything else from
Thank you.
anybody? If not, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the staff recommendation.
Okay, there's a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion, any public comments? Jill, anybody?
Nobody has their hand raised, Carl.
Okay. Okay, seeing that, nothing further from the board. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. All right, so we can now move on to the 9-year strategic exit plan.
I guess.
Ellen.
So, yeah, so we had a fairly in-depth and extensive discussion around this at the February board meeting. It was on the agenda as an action item in the event that the board wanted to take action. It had only first been seen by 3 of the board members when the agenda went out. Two of you had been part of the working group that developed this. And so the board decided last month to take a month, spend some time thinking about this, made a number of suggestions at the meeting for things that you felt like would enhance this exit plan and better explain or identify things in there. So, and we also had pointed out at the board meeting that Jenny Merriam had suggested some last minute edits that didn't materially affect the document. It just made it more readable. And so I incorporated Jenny's suggestions for the most part. And then the major things that were added to this version at the board's request are that one of the things I did was we included a definition of equity in the guiding principles. And then it's one that's being commonly used as we go through our JEDI process with the city for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So to clarify what we mean by that. The other thing that was added at the board's request was an emphasis on, and this came from Nancy, an emphasis on the fact that we base what we do on the city council's priorities and objectives, and that we do the things we do within the confines of state law. So I added a section that just re-emphasized all of that under the excuse me, ER2 projects and priorities section. And in fact, even added the site from Montana Code Annotated that governs what we do and can and can't do. So in addition to that, there was a strong suggestion that we add to this document the rationale for the priority projects and how they are prioritized and why they were prioritized the way they were. I did that verbally at the meeting last month. It has now been memorialized as an additional exhibit to the exit plan and Exhibit C. And the final thing was several of you wanted some acknowledgement of past projects that we've done and investments we've made in the district. And so, rather than trying to do that in an exhaustive manner, I took the projects that really emphasize the city's housing and infrastructure goals and quantified them for the district as an Exhibit D. So those are the fundamental changes that have been made, and the staff recommendation is that you adopt this strategic exit plan and direct staff to refer the plan to City Council as an information item, which is something that we also discussed last meeting. And that presentation to council will give us an opportunity to really further showcase what we've done historically in the district in terms of investment, and also talk about the fact that these larger projects will not happen without issuing debt. So if there's not an appetite to issue debt, then we need to come back and rethink priorities.
Comments, questions?
What did I leave out?
Nothing, just a comment that what you did leave in is the idea that there is still flexibility here if there's projects that come along and that need to be done.
Well,
So we have to be flexible too. I guess the question would be, do you know when this would go to City Council? And do you want?
It'll have to be sometime in April because of the council schedule at this point. There are no meetings next week because of spring break, which is pushing everything out. But I think we want to get it to council, fairly quickly. It's my intention to finish up. So I mentioned to you last month that I had most of the work done on Urban Renewal District 3, 5-year strategic plan. I need to, and I've backed off on finalizing that, because when we put the TIF graphic and the stuff that we put on the Engage Missoula page, we've got an opportunity for people to express their opinion about some of our priorities in terms of support or not support. And the first week that that was up, we got quite a few folks who weighed in on on our priorities. And I thought, well, maybe I should sit back and not take District 3 forward until we see how that plays out. Well, the next week we got 4 responses, and this past week we got 1. So I think that as a tool either needs to be made more public, or we just need to move on with our business if people aren't engaged in that way. So once I get that finalized, we'll bring the working group back together, make sure that we've done what suits them before we'll bring it back to you and to the council for information. So I think District 2 can go on its own and go on to council, and we'll have a sense from that discussion about issuance of debt and those sorts of things. Because no surprise, District 3 is going to depend on issuance of debt as well, because we've got some very big projects we're working on in that district.
So Ruth, I would think that, at this point, it's ours, and the way this evolved through the working group, it was eventually the city council people asked that we bring it to the council as an information point. So exactly when that would occur, I would first of all rely on them to tell us when they want it. And then secondly, Ellen and I have talked a little bit about taking that opportunity to use it as an opportunity to further educate council people about what we do, why we do it, how we do it, and what we've done. And so, maybe put together a PowerPoint or something like that so that we're ready to show this. The genesis of this was a concern that we had, that we were maybe thinking about the future of MRA different than what people on the council were thinking about it. And that turned out to not be the case. So we're working, very, very closely with the folks on the council who were part of this thing. And I just would rely on them to tell us when's the best time to bring it to the council. Okay. Jill,
Well, if you can't see the attendees, Gwen Jones, city council member, was on and had her hand raised. And so I just thought I'd let you know in case you couldn't see that. So.
Well, I don't see her on or a hand raised. I see Natasha's hand raised.
And are you on?
I can see my name on the screen. This is Gwen.
Well, I can't. Anyway, hi, Gwen.
Hi, I feel like I'm lurking. Sorry, I'm here.
Just with the untechnical ones of us.
I was kind of just going to provide a comment on this item. I don't know if you want to keep me till the end. Up to you.
No, you're welcome to join us at any time.
Okay, great. Well, I will just put my 2 cents in. First of all, I have read this plan and I love it. I think it's great. I'm really excited. The last few years, there have been a lot of MRA talks, and I think this is just a wonderfully constructive tool that has come from those talks. We talk a lot about how it is opportunistic, what walks through the door, but I feel like this plan just gives good, clear messaging to the community and to electeds and to all stakeholders as to what the expectations are as an exit plan. And as a result, I hope and I do believe that it will focus those opportunities that come through the door, because by messaging what the priorities are, I think that's a really good, clear message to the community about what we're valuing, what we're prioritizing, and that of course has changed in the last 10, 15, 20 years. So I just wanted to tell you how supportive I am. I also am messaging to city councilors that I really want them to read this entire plan It's so important. And yes, I hope it comes to council soon as an information item. I just wanted to let you know, I would like to be there for it. And April 6th, I don't know what else is scheduled for April 6th in terms of committees, but that would be great. I will be out of town the following 2 Wednesdays, which is unusual for me, but sometimes people go on long trips. So I'm going to be gone. And then the last week in April, we are off. So I would either say the first week in April or early May. Just wanted to put that out there. And I'm going to do my best to encourage counselors to read all of this, because I just think it's exactly what we should be doing right now. And I appreciate all of the council, the collaboration between great people on the board and staff and council to have these discussions the last few years. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I think, the rest of the board knows that Gwen was involved from the beginning and a very important part of this whole thing. And from my personal perspective, just a joy to work with. When she had questions, she asked them. When she had concerns, she raised them. When her concerns were addressed, she said so. I mean, just somebody that was looking to make sure that we were operating as efficiently as possible with as much cooperation between the board and the council as possible. And it's just was and I think will continue to be a joy to work with her. Tasha had her hand raised, I think.
I'm so glad that Gwen commented because she said, some things I would want to say, only to comment that this is really impressive and thoughtful and helpful. And as I wasn't a part of the last meeting, I haven't been a part of the committee discussions. I found this to be incredibly educational and a great reminder of the past and a look to the future in the end, and a reminder that these districts are not meant to go on forever. The hope is that during the life of a urban renewal district, that the work will be completed and the district will be closed. Sometimes we can't always predict how long that takes. But the thoughtful approach while recognizing all the work that's been done to date was so helpful, and I so appreciated reading it.
Okay, anything else from anybody? If not, is there a motion? Somebody better move this thing.
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion.
Does that Tasha move the recommendation that we approve this?
Yes.
Second from someone? Ruth has seconded.
Yeah, I'll second.
Any further discussion? Any public comments? Jill?
No comments, nobody with their hand raised, Carl. Thank you.
All right, then with that, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And and again, I just want to say we had Gwen and Brian von Lossberg before he was off the council, and Gordon Hess, right? Ellen and the
Yes.
mayor and Dale. I can't remember who all from the city, but the other person who, of course, was instrumental in this is Nancy.
Mhm.
So, okay, non-action items, anything, staff reports, director report? Ellen, anything you want to point out from the director report that we have?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I will elaborate a little on the communication piece. Jill has been diligently going through and screening applicants for the communication specialist position, and it appears we have some pretty good candidates.
Okay. So where does that leave us just timing wise?
Jill?
The position is open through March 22nd, which is next Tuesday. And at
Okay.
that time, we will look at all of the applicants at that time and determine if we have an adequate pool. If so, then we will set up interviews, and so that they will have to be contacted, all the people that will be interviewed. And so interviews have to be set up and take place. And so, you know, that takes a couple weeks for sure.
Okay. All right.
10 applicants so far.
Oh, cool. All right. Anything else?
You want to mention the graphic piece in the press release?
Yes, I may be happy to. The communications office for the city has just done a press release regarding our TIF informational graphic that you're all aware of, that 6 Pony Hitch completed for MRA, and that we've presented at the board meeting in the past. That's been out on our website since January, and we've had printed copies made, and we've delivered those to a variety of organizations across the city to help with our educational campaign and demystifying tax increment financing, and just help the public understand a little bit about, you know, hopefully a little bit more than they maybe do now about what we do and the kinds of projects that we assist with. That press release was just forwarded to you, so you were aware of that. And what that says, it also directs folks to our Engage Missoula page, which will be out and up on the city's website for feedback from our residents through Friday, April 8th. And at that time, we will combine all of those comments into a report and bring that back to the board so you can see what folks have been saying. It's been very positive so far, the comments. And I think Ellen spoke earlier regarding how some of the comments have kind of died off after the first initial release, but we're hopeful that this press release that Ginny just did is going to kind of bring that back into the forefront, and we'll have some additional comments come through Engage Missoula.
Thank you. Anything else, Ellen, on the
Well,
director's report?
I mean, the comments that we're getting are clearly indicative that we are doing things correctly. There's almost across the board support for the in the survey piece for the types of projects that we're doing in funding.
Okay. Anything else? On the budget reports, anything particular, Jill, to point out?
In particular, to highlight that this month, you know, we have.
I mean, does anybody have any questions about them?
I just wanted to thank Todd for spending almost half of what's left in ERD 2.
It's been a fun week.
You're going to be getting it all back soon.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
I would like to thank Jill for her memo that came with the budget reports that explained them, I think, really well. And I know they'll be useful for anybody who's looking at them, even though I don't know who's looking at them besides us. But thank you very much, Jill. It's wonderful.
Welcome.
Okay, any questions from anybody, or Jill, anything you wanted to, anything, you know, surprising to point out other than the fact that Todd's spending all the money?
Nothing too exciting going on, but
Okay.
everything's been updated, all the projects that you've approved. There was one project from last month that's on there, and otherwise, yeah, just a snapshot in time of where we are with our projects, what's been completed and what hasn't, and where we are with expenditures and revenues.
Okay. We've got no committee reports, or is there anything else to come before the board? If not, can we meet in person next month if things continue to go the way they're going?
Right now, City Council is starting to meet in person. They had their first meeting where they were all there this past Monday. The public is not allowed in yet, so it's a hybrid. while we debug the system, and the direction from administration at this point is that boards and commissions should continue to meet in the fashion that we're currently meeting, with the understanding that being able to have full-on in-person meetings is on the horizon. IT's in the process of equipping our meeting rooms to be able to do the technology. MRA's conference room, the Hal Fraser conference room, has not been completed yet. City Council chambers may be the only one that is. Jack Reedy's next, and we're right after them. The equipment's in, but it's not operational, I think.
Okay. So so we're probably not, we're not meeting in person.
Well, I think we may be, I mean, I wouldn't discount the idea that we may be able to have an April board meeting in person.
Okay.
You meet in city council chambers?
Well, that's a problem, because city council chambers is functioning as the third courtroom for municipal court until they get the renovations done at City Hall that creates a room for the third judge. So we really can't use the council chambers until they move out of there. I think they're going to work around committee meetings possibly happening back there, but they are going to be restricted to the afternoon. So the courts still have access to council chambers on Wednesday mornings. So I don't believe we can do it as long as the court's back there.
Okay. All right, anything else? Ellen? I'm gone that first week in April.
Okay. We can push this to May.
Okay.
And what we may end up doing is doing ERD 2 and ERD 3.
Well.
Possibly.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm fine waiting until May.
Well, we should check and make sure that works for Gwen too.
Sure. Well, she said either April 6th or the first week of May.
Yeah.
Because she's going to miss the next 2 April committee meetings, and then there is none the last week.
Right. Well, we're gone. That's first week in April.
Okay. Hope it's somewhere fun.
It is.
Good.
So,
You can travel.
All right. All right, unless there's anything else. Annie, how'd we do? You want to give us a grade on your first real board meeting?
A+.
Oh yeah, gee, what a shock.
The diplomat.
Okay. All right, so she's got a little savvy. All right, we kind of suspected that. All right, everybody. See you next time. We're adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.